talking.
Yep.
So you guys want to give the elevator pitch? Who you are, what y'all do, and who y'all do it to?
Wow. Okay. Go, babe.
I'm Liz Mathis, and currently I'm the owner of 1908 House of Wine and Ale, Kindling Texas Kitchen, and co-owner of the Rooted Fork, all located in North Main Street in Cibolo, Texas. 1908 is a wine bar, but it's also a restaurant. We also have food. Kindling Texas Kitchen is an elevated cuisine, Texas cuisine restaurant, and the Rooted Fork is a breakfast and lunch spot. Each one are very uniquely different, have their own style, have their own culture, and that's pretty much what we do. That's pretty much what I do.
When you say currently, you're not currently as in you're selling it, or currently as in you're about to open another restaurant.
Everything's always for sale for the right price.
There you go. Right, you got to have an exit strategy. So, how did y'all get into the restaurant business, or is that something that y'all have always been a part of or into? Or?
No, not at all.
So,
yeah, we just we moved here from the Philadelphia area. When we moved to Cibolo, Texas, it was for our family. It was to raise our children, and there was nothing here. There was nothing here. Nothing. I mean, the closest HEB was on Kitty Hawk. It was always a running joke with me and some of my friends. Gosh, I wish we had a wine bar. Gosh, I wish we had a wine bar around here. We wouldn't have to go to New Braunfels. We wouldn't have to go to San Antonio. I was like, yeah, that'd be great.
I think that was a big part of it early on is, you know, we're married. We both work. We both have jobs. We have children. But anytime we were looking for something to go do with ourselves, because we required ourselves at the time to have date nights. So we would have a date night once a week. And what we found ourselves doing was we were, you know, getting a babysitter or somebody that could watch our kids, but we're wasting 30 or 40 minutes of our date night, both directions, just to get to somewhere that had something that was nice and quaint and something to be able to sit down and enjoy. And then again, we were always cutting those dinners or those evenings short so that we could get back in time for, you know, for the babysitter or whatever the case may be. So there was just absolutely she's saying nothing. There's nothing enjoyable to us.
1908, was that the first one?
Yes.
So I take it y'all are wine drinkers. You started a wine bar.
Well, but honestly, it was a wine drinker. I knew nothing about wine.
You know, so what kind of transpired is what she was talking about, being around her friends or talking with her friends, always want to open a wine bar. You know, Liz and myself were both big time visionaries. So there was a point for 4 or 5 years while she's joking around with her friends and somebody should open a wine bar. We should open a wine bar. You know, they joke about it. And then really we drove around a lot looking at the possibilities in the future of a wine bar, probably for 4 or 5 years, just driving around saying, oh, that would be cute. Oh, that'd be quaint. That'd be, you know, this or that. And then it was one night, as I recall it, her and her friend at the time, you know, drank probably a little bit too much wine, but at the same time, I was frustrated from this conversation, always going to talk about a wine bar and not putting that in action. And I said, okay, this is it. Y'all go to lunch tomorrow. Y'all talk about and drive around Cibolo and find the location that you really think is it, because we've got to have something around here. And sure enough, they were leaving a restaurant or going to a restaurant, whether you're going to or leaving, and leaving that restaurant, the owner of the house that 1908 resides in today was walking in the yard and placing a for sale by owner sign in the yard.
Yeah, we went to Harmon's Barbecue.
Plug. Ray, you owe me 50 cents.
And so we were literally driving down the street going to lunch. And he was putting the sign in the yard. And when we got to lunch, she was like, did you see that guy putting a for sale sign at his white house with the wraparound porch? And I was like, I did. I was like, is his own commercial though? She's like, I don't know. Let me check. So through lunch, she checked to see if it was zoned commercial. She was a realtor. And it was zoned commercial residential.
I mean, when you said wraparound porch and all that, was that like, did you have a concept in your mind already about the styling and things like that? And it was like, hey, this is it. Look, this is everything that we were looking at, or was it?
Well, the aesthetics on the outside, I mean, that's, I didn't do much to it. I painted it because the house is beautiful as it is. We did put up the white picket fence in front. That's just TABC law. But the outside is aesthetically is beautiful. Now the interior had a whole different idea. But just the way it came together just happened to be, we used the aesthetics of what the house had to give instead of trying to recreate something that it wasn't. So, and that actually became a little bit of a passion of mine, is taking these houses like 1908. It was built in 1908. So, but 1908 was built, the house was built in 1908.
Wow. Okay.
So we just, having the passion to just keep buildings that were built over 100 years ago, and keeping the aesthetics of them and keeping the look and the charm and the feel of what the actual house has to give is a little bit, I love doing that.
Just the whole atmosphere, the whole vibe, you nailed it. There's y'all got the games, the Foursquare games. I think it's called Foursquare, right? And
Connect
then,
Four.
Connect Four.
Connect Four, that's the one. And then the couches, and then the chair, so when you walk in the main entrance, that whole area there like that, where you can just sit down like you're in your living room and have a glass of wine or whatever. I had a lager, a mango something. It was the first time I ever had any type of mango. I said I'd been there before a long time ago through the Tri-County Chamber.
Oh, yes.
And I had I think a blonde beer or whatever it was. And then so I was just like, I got there and I was like, hey, let me have that. And she was like, well, we don't have that, but we have these two things here. And she brought me 2 samples. And then she was like, the mango is a little different, but I just thought maybe, and I was like, I got to try that, So then I had, and then of course the glass that was served, it was much colder. And then, so my girlfriend ended up drinking half of it. I was like, what the hell? So I'm getting off track, but so the vibe that you have when you first walk in there, was that intentional from the jump, or did it just fall into place? It
was pretty intentional. I had been Pinteresting quite a bit of things that I like. I was looking for a vibe that personally I would like, because if I like it, there's got to be 1,000 of me that like it.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I went off of. The couches, and it's funny, you're sitting in your living room. Yeah. We actually call that area the living room.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, in our register system, it's called the living room.
Yeah, in the register system, it's called the living room.
Okay.
And then the dining room is where the tables are.
Makes sense.
And then the bar. So it's the three sections. But yeah, it was intentional. Wherever someone had a couch for sale that I thought was like kind of cool looking.
Well, I think it's important not to take away from that. I'm not taking away from that at all, but to add to that is we didn't just have couches sitting around our house waiting for a wine bar, right? We didn't know anything. And then when that gentleman walked out and put the for sale sign, the world kind of changed at that moment.
Sure.
Because we had already planned for the previous 10 years to put ourselves in a financial position to be ready for whenever it came.
It was going to happen.
It was going to happen. So once he walked out and he put the for sale sign in and we were able to put in an offer and get the house, then it was, okay, now what's the next step? Well, my son was getting married at the time, and that was going to take a substantial amount of time, effort, and money. So what do we do? So we actually sat on the building itself for a year. And while we sat on that building for a year, that's when she was accumulating all these couches and chairs, but it was. We have some of those couches were free. Some of them cost $10. Now, in the end, we had to pay substantially more because we had to refurbish them. And the way that Liz was able to bring those couches and those bones back to life to create that living room effect and other things, the light,
the gas pumps,
that's my only claim to fame right there. That's it.
So I pointed that out to my girlfriend yesterday. I said, "Did you notice the lights up there? They're old gas pumps. So yeah, tell me about that. How'd you get those?" So
how we got them is one way. So there was a road show that we were watching, and I couldn't believe that somebody had bought a gas pump for what they did. It was just a gas pump little handle in a glass case. I forget maybe the antique roach. I don't know, whatever it was. And I just thought it was kind of curious or kind of interesting as to what they did. And whether it's her idea or my idea or whatever, all I know is that I was responsible to find them and to get them for a good price. So anytime we went anywhere, I was looking for gas pump handles, because there are people out there that sell these things for like $75, $80. I wasn't going to pay $75 for a piece of metal like that.
Yeah.
So I found a couple for $5, $6, $7, but that was my job, and I think I found 4 in total. And then to hollow them out for the
That's
electricity.
the only way to get a man to go shopping, I think, or antiquing.
Give them something.
Yeah, give them a purpose.
Yeah, look, go find this.
We've never shopped that much in our entire life.
As you did for 1908?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
for a
just
year.
went to every time we saw, the little houses that have stuff in the front, just random
Estate
stuff.
sales. I mean, it was everything.
We went to everything just to find little trinkets that would actually fit. Like, I don't know if you guys went into the bathrooms, but we are like really noteworthy bathrooms.
Yes, that is lots of space.
Yeah, lots of space, and the sinks in there.
Oh man,
everything.
cast iron sinks.
The toilet paper dispensers.
Mm-hmm.
The whole shot. I mean, it's y'all did a terrific job with the place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So drove to Lafayette, Louisiana for one of those sinks.
Really?
It was the right price. I just couldn't pass it up. He was selling it for like, I don't know. They go for like 1,000 now.
Mm-hmm.
I found it for like $500. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
day trip.
Yeah. I drove to Missouri to buy a printer, so I
There you
get
go.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the business. Tell me about and I'm going to get into the kindling and the root fork in a little bit, but 1908 since it was your first one. Talk to me about your labor. How do you guys find staff? How do y'all find people? What's y'all's retention? How does it being in Cibolo? There's just 30,000 people.
I would say initially we relied on a lot of our friends to help us get up and running. A lot of our friends came. I mean, the list can go on if I started to name them. The animal that hiring in a restaurant world today is 1,000 times different than what it was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, it was much easier to find affordable staff and quality staff than it is today in today's world, being in a post-COVID environment.
What has COVID changed for the hiring process of restaurant staff?
From my perspective, it is the expectations. People went a year and a half not doing anything and getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
I feel strongly that they feel the same way, that they don't have to work as hard, or everybody now wants this job that they can go work from home and be on their computer and be on their phone. So I'm talking about waiters. I mean, everybody thinks that there is this dream job where they can go work at home. And then when you do find that particular staff member, because everybody is hiring, they feel that they have this choice, which they do, but they feel like, I can get away with this or that because everybody's hiring. Yeah, you need me. I don't need you.
Right.
I can go to the next place. So we found ourselves in a completely different position.
So COVID has just changed the mindset. Before it was a little bit easier because people, they wanted to get out, they wanted to work, or they knew that they had to be accountable for whatever. And now they're just, for lack of a better word, spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So, and you were going to talk more about it?
My business partner, Cassie from the Rooted Fork, she went on Texas Workforce and started pulling job applications and calling them because the job pool is a little bit smaller and it's a lot of bit smaller. But she started calling these people and we started trying to set them up for interviews, and we set up probably about 10 interviews from Texas Workforce applications. Out of the 10, they all agreed to come. We followed up with making sure, hey, this is where we're at. This is the time of your interview.
Oh, come on.
None of them showed.
Oh, you're kidding.
Not a single one showed.
Not a call, text,
No.
nothing. Not something my dog ate.
That's
my
not a
paperwork.
requirement for them to remain on unemployment.
So as long
all
as
they got to do is make the call.
Yes.
Initiate contact
Show.
or whatever, right? So,
And this is not to knock anybody that is relying on Texas Workforce or relying on things of that nature to find their positions or find their jobs.
I think people are abusing it.
We've just found that there's a lot of abuse when it comes to that.
and then you factor in the dynamic of the customer, right? The consumer. How do you? This is where it gets into frustration for me trying to understand. I try to wrap my head around all businesses, right? But so for me, a restaurant, and I don't know if it's fair to call 1908 a restaurant, but it's all serve food. So I'm for the sake of this example, kindling is this way. So, if your food is perfect every night, it's perfect, spot on, which I think is a tall order to ask.
Yes.
If it is absolutely perfect, your customer still has to be in the mood for it.
Yes.
You can't expect somebody to be, and I'm sure y'all have people that come in every day, or close to it because the food is terrific. But as somebody trying to run numbers, I can't get my head around it. You know what I mean? It's like you have to have a perfect, even if you had a perfect product, how do you get that same person coming back in for more? You know what I mean? So, and I mean, I realize there's something there with numbers, and you got rotating averages of people or whatever are going to come patronize your business. But how do you even attempt to manage that?
Jeez, that's a great question.
Do you want me to speak to that?
Well, yeah, you can start.
I mean, it's the atmosphere. So it's not the perfect food. It's not the perfect bill. It's not the perfect price. It's not the perfect location, but location definitely helps. It's the atmosphere. People want to enjoy an atmosphere that is away from their home, which is where they, eat, sleep, drink, just everything that they do, go to the restroom in their home, but they want to go out, right? Mm-hmm. They want to get out, and they want to get away from their worries. They want to get away from their stress. They want to get away from other things. Well, other than when you go out to an establishment that charges $400 for a steak, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to establishments all over the nation, and in some cases, because of the people that are there, we've had tens of thousands. I would say tens of thousands, but thousands of dollars on a bill. Mm-hmm. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I cannot tell you how good the steak was, to be honest with you, because it was the conversation and the reason that we were there and the people that we were around and the atmosphere that I was in. I can describe that to a T.
Sure.
Literally to a T.
Food is a byproduct.
So, yeah, food happens to be there. You don't want the food distracting, meaning that you don't want it to be bad, because that's when it's, when the food is bad, I'm going to tell my wife, oh my God, this tastes like crap.
Next time we're going somewhere else to meet these people.
And now we're all talking about how bad our meal is.
Sure.
You don't want that, but you want something that is very inviting, very, puts people at ease, puts people in a comfort zone. And so for 1908, a lot of that environment, that atmosphere that she creates it from the couches when you walk in the door to the black and white television screen that is not a sports station.
And I
appreciate it is there to sit there and to relax, not to worry about whether your team is winning or losing at that moment in time. To talk about what you had mentioned, whether it's a restaurant bar scenario, pre-COVID, we were bar. I mean, we were
51%.
Oh,
but COVID hit. Rules changed. Mm-hmm. Our dynamics changed. I mean, we had to change. Most people had to revamp their entire kitchen. We did not, because we already had a kitchen. We just had to add more items to the menu. Oh. And thank goodness at that time we already had kindling, so we were able to brainstorm with that chef in adding items to our menu at 1908 that somebody could come in for a lighter meal, not a heavy meal, not your steak and lobster.
Right.
But if you want to come in and have a good hearty sandwich, if you want to have a good soup and sandwich.
And so yesterday when I was over there, I had the Reuben, really good, mm-hmm. and then we also had the keto flatboard, I think it's called, mm-hmm. right? But I mean that's like that flatboard is am I saying that right? Is it flatboard?
It's a keto plate.
Keto
board. So that was like perfect because my girlfriend's kids. That's what we do at the house. I mean, it's like you picking food and you're just enjoying conversation every time. The kids, of course, they love the game and sitting on the couch.
Uh-huh,
it was like
of course,
it was like we were at home, but you're out in public in your environment and you got somebody bringing you drinks. That's always nice.
The keto board actually was a kind of a joke.
Well, we
was a joke.
We went on the keto diet for about a week or two.
A second. Yes.
And then I said, we got to have something at night too, because we live there. So we came up with this keto board, and then everybody loves it.
I took awesome. A picture of it, and I got so many responses. I was like, hey, look, keto board 1908.
You got to be kidding.
I got so many.
No, that's exactly how that.
And not even on 1908. I posted on just my own personal page, and I got it blew up, and I'm like, do we have to put this on the menu? Like, I don't know what to do.
That's hilarious. Converting the house into a bar and restaurant. Well, what kind of challenges were there with the city? I mean, did y'all have any hardship or was it just pretty easy? Or
I think I'll talk to this one. When you're converting a home that was built in 1908 and you're now in 2016, 2017 at the time, that's a long time, right? So we're talking about a huge difference between codes, what you were allowed to do back in 1908 versus what you're allowed to do today. Mm-hmm. So we meaning myself and my wife and the city, both of us were in a very unfamiliar territory. We were in a territory where we had to take a house that was built in 1908 and bring it to code, to today's code. Restrooms included, the sky's the limit on what you got to do to get there. During that process, there was a lot of frustration, a lot of back and forth on both parties, because we're trying to find what is appropriate in that scenario. So when you ask a question, was it easy? Was it difficult? Well, it was very difficult. But I'm not to say that wouldn't be very difficult in any city that had never experienced transforming a home that old into a viable restaurant or restaurant bar that's safe for people to go into, that they're not going to fall through the floors, that we're not going to have some electrical fire that burns everything down with people inside of it.
Well, and then also keep the integrity of the structure.
Of course, absolutely.
The feel
it's
and
huge.
everything that you...
Very difficult thing to do. Very difficult thing to do.
How much, aside from just the looks of it, did you have to pretty much redo everything? Electrical, plumbing?
Yes, because I had to come up to commercial code.
Okay.
So, which is fine.
Yeah, sure.
But if you look at the walls and the ceilings, same walls, same ceilings.
That's a challenge to be able to get into those areas and replace the electrical for something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's all panel, so you can just pop off the wood.
Okay.
And if the person our contractor that we did hire for this project, did revitalization in downtown San Antonio.
Okay.
So he was very familiar with this type of project.
How big an area do you have in the back for keeping an inventory and stuff like that? And so where I'm going with that is I know very little about the restaurant business and the wine business, but so how much inventory do you have to keep on hand? How quick do y'all go through it?
We go weekly. So we order wine once a week, and we have par levels. So if our par, which means is our base level. So if we only have 6, now we have to order more.
Okay.
So every week, everything gets counted.
Okay.
Food is only good. Eggs, dairy products, 5 days. Other things, 7 days. So you order it when needed. So it's always fresh, and we source from local farmers.
Okay.
So
very nice.
Local farmers, local produce, local meats. So we order from them once a week.
So you have to actually sell more food to be legal, a legal restaurant instead
you have to flip it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're currently a bar and you're selling X amount of alcohol, right? And then any business person would say, oh, well, if I have the ability to double my sales by serving food, of course I'm going to do that, right? But it seems like, did y'all take a big hit on the alcohol in order to sell more food?
No, we had. So
am I making sense?
Of course. So we know that we had to increase the food outtake, meaning that we had to sell a lot of food. We had to get food with almost every order. Popcorn, things of that nature. Popcorn makes a big difference, believe it or not. But any kind of food that we could do, we had to push food. But when COVID happened, we had to also stay open.
Yeah.
So there was that aspect. People can't come in and drink at a bar at that time. So we started ordering food from our major vendors. I'm going to say Benny Keith, even though we don't use them. Benny Keith so that everybody recognizes the name.
Sure.
Because you're not going to recognize the farmers that we ordered from.
Right.
But we would order in this product, and we'd start selling it for people to come by and pick it up. So they would drive up in their car, and we were their grocery store. So that increased a lot of our food, and we had pretty much no alcohol sales at that time because there was not to go. The state of Texas had not changed that rule or that law yet. So everything that we had going out the door was food. So then our alcohol sales went to zero. So when TABC came up with the law, they allowed us to include that in the calculation. So all that food that was sold during that time frame and the no alcohol was allowed to be included in that scenario. Okay. But we also had to change the kitchen. We had to add more food items. And then at that same time, we were opening the venue at 1908 that goes into, because it's still on the same property, all of that non-alcohol related items gets added into the food gross sales. So when somebody comes and does a wedding, all that food is provided via 1908.
Okay.
So that food then increases. So now you're talking about serving 80 to 120 people. Vast quantities of food. in a short time frame, a 1 or 2 hour time frame. So all of that, we strategically talked about all of that and strategically put ourselves in a position to be able to fall within that category.
So, and that was during COVID.
Very short time frame, yes.
So now everything's kind of sort of back to normal. You're able to sell alcohol at your leisure, however you want to say it. So y'all are still classified the same, right? So now that you're not having zero alcohol sales, you had to increase your food.
That's just advertising. I mean, that's the flatbreads that Liz is doing. That's a lot of advertising for the food and what we're doing. The venue has really helped in that manner. We're doing weddings or bat mitzvahs. We're doing something almost every other weekend. Amber, who's the general manager there, is doing phenomenal at booking out the venue. So it's those things that have kept us above that number. And at this moment in time, TBC has not revisited that number either. So they haven't lowered it back to 51%. Before the state shut us down, or when I say shut us down, closed bars, we were already in a position, we already had the food, we already had the ability to take online orders for people to order on our Facebook page and or our website and then come in and pick it up.
Okay.
We were ready. We actually went live the day before the state of Texas said, okay, bars, you're shut down.
If you had to do it all over again, would you start with food?
Right now.
Yeah.
And to open another 1908, it definitely would have a full kitchen. Yes.
A larger kitchen, yes.
Like a kitchen.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm in a position now where I understand back of house a lot better. Before, like I told you,
new business.
all I did was drink wine. I didn't know nothing about it. So that was just putting my toe in the water.
Sure.
But now knowing chefs, now knowing, the quality of food that people are looking for, it is definitely more beneficial to have, I believe, not just to have a bar,
right?
But also have a kitchen.
What kind of waste do you guys have with 1908?
Like percentage wise, we base it off of percentage. Right now, I believe we're at 8%.
That seems
You're lower.
low.
No, that's about right. But it's factored differently. But our waste is very little.
Overall, like, because we factor in the waste prior to even putting it out.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's
but
already
you're talking about food waste, or you're talking about
money that you're spending that you're not making money on.
With food, we can recapture that through relationships that we have with some of the farmers and stuff like that. I mean, they don't pay us for it, but they can take some of that food for pigs and everything else.
Sure.
But there's just not a lot of waste. The only people that are wasteful are the people that purchase it, meaning that they'll buy a full cheese plate, which is astronomically large, usually intended for more than just one person, and they'll have a substantial amount. We don't use that.
Right.
But they paid for it.
Yeah.
So there's not a waste there.
Sure.
So the things that we determined early on that were easy to waste, meaning things that would go bad quickly or that were very cost prohibitive, very expensive. So if you, what were those seeds that we had or whatever that was that we used to have early on, those nuts that we had, very, very expensive, right? And we couldn't maintain a very high margin on it. So the margin was so thin that I think somebody spilled one bag of those stupid things in the bag, and we lost our margin for the month just off of the nuts.
Wow!
For those nuts,
we said we're not carrying that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, so our waste is very, very little, but it's because we strategically again look at where do we have that margin at, and what can we afford to lose, and does it bring in enough margin to make it make sense?
Correct.
So. How have your customers responded? I can only imagine y'all have had to have price increases. Yep. Everything costs more than double now. I mean, your costs go up. You got to pass it on. You just have to. So how has that been responded with your customers? I mean, is it like sticker shock, or they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this? You get any feedback, pushback, any kind of?
Well, I want you to talk about the customer response. I want to talk about how we arrived at where the numbers and whatnot. So in the numbers, we sat down with our management team and said, we can't just go willy-nilly and say, we're going to increase our prices by 15%. That's ludicrous, right? So, but a lot of restaurants and establishments did that. Mm-hmm. So we did not do that. We sat down with our managers and we went line item by line item by line item and said, what is this costing us? So we had to recost every item again and really understand now that, let's say we were charging $10 for an item, our margin was, let's say, $1. Well, now that same $10 item now costs us, to where we're only making 50 cents. Is it worth it to us and to our guest to raise it another 50 cents so that our margin remains the same or not on this item? Because that one item communicates volumes. Because if that item is, 2 eggs and 1 piece of bacon, and you go up by 50 cents, oh my gosh, I mean, that's just astounding, right? So you can't do that. You got to look at every item individually, and then you have to look at, okay, we have to overall account for inflation, but we got to account for maybe 7.25% on one item, and maybe only 3% on one item, or no percent on another item. And then by doing that, you don't have this massive increase to the consumer
across the board,
of course, but you do account for it. But Liz she deals with all the customers, and I want to talk to that. But that's how we arrived there. Was literally line by line. I'll never forget those.
Do you have
3 or 4 days?
Do you have a specific profit margin, or does a restaurant business have a specific margin that they look for? General contractors, they do 3% cost plus. Things like this. Is it similar with restaurants?
So he looks at numbers a little bit differently than I do. I'm looking at like cost. So I want the percentage for food to be under like 25%. The total cost volume under 25%. 25 to 32. 32 is a little high. I look at food and beverage.
Okay.
So Jayme's a little bit more in depth in the overall.
Okay.
But when I'm speaking to chef, or I'm speaking to my managers, or the front of house leads, I'm looking at, hey, we need to cut people tonight.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that busy. We're
Right.
wasting. For me, I'm looking at payroll cost.
Sure.
And with chef, I'm looking at what he's purchasing, what's being put out, cost.
Gotcha.
So that's what I mainly, myself, focus on, because I'm communicating with the staff those things, because that's what they have control over.
Okay.
In relating it to what you're referring to, like, a metal building, for instance, or a thing that costs $100 and you want to mark it up by 25%, sell it for 125. We look at it differently. A lot of restaurants look at it the same way that you're looking at it. We look at it completely different in the sense that we will cost out every particular item. So let's say it's a bottle of wine. That bottle of wine may cost us $50. Okay, well, that's, what is that per glass?
Sure.
And then, well, that's X per glass. Okay. However, our competitor's charging this per glass. So our competitor's charging less than what we're getting it for. Okay, so we're not going to carry that bottle of wine.
Sure.
Or let's say the bottle of wine is $100. Well, that's $25 a glass of wine. Who in our area is going to spend $25 a glass of wine besides my wife? But who's going to do that? So we can't carry that bottle of wine that you're going to find, maybe downtown San Antonio. So we also look at the costs across the board of what our surrounding area is willing to pay.
Okay.
Now we've got to find that product or source that product that's going to fall within that range to where we can still make a decent margin, to where we survive and we don't close our doors. So it's a little bit different. And again, going back into each item, it kind of varies, where we can't just be this gutsy company that comes in and says, hey, well, we're going to buy this $5 bottle of wine, because you see it. Trust me, we go out to restaurants and we know what they're paying for those bottles. Yeah. And because what you're really, as a consumer, paying for, when you go out to eat with your girlfriend and your family, you're going for the experience, right? That's what you're paying for. And we encourage people to, find that glass or that bottle of wine that you like, but we'll go out to a restaurant and we'll see what we know is $5 bottle of wine, and they're charging $116, for the bottle of wine. And we're just looking at each other like, wow, that's just nuts that you would do that to any consumer.
Sure.
So we don't do that.
And that's another thing. That's another thing that frustrates me about the business, right? So Cheddar's, for example, right up here in the forum, you've got this very expensive investment in building and food and atmosphere and everything, right? And in Cheddar's example, it's being run by kids, right? And then you want to price your food competitively. However, you don't want people coming in cut off shorts and flip flops and tank tops. You know what I mean? It's like this wicked balance. You know what I mean? So like, I completely understand what you're saying whenever you say, you're looking for, or you're priced for a specific clientele. You know what I mean? So let's see here. We're about halfway through. Let's do a lightning round. So these are pod decks. They're just random questions. They're silly questions. They're have nothing to do with entrepreneurship. They have nothing to do with anything really.
Even better.
So you answer them however you want to answer them, and just remember, you pick the deck. All right, Liz, we'll start.
Okay, go.
All right, Liz, we'll start with you. Question number 1: spike the punch or Xerox your butt at the next office party?
Office party, the punch is already spiked. It doesn't really matter. So Xerox my butt.
You can't.
That's what I'm going for.
You can't spike the punch anymore, huh?
No, they've already, yeah.
All right, Jayme, what's something weird that you recommend everyone tries at least once?
I don't think it's weird, but skydiving is the first thing that comes to mind.
Really?
Absolutely. I don't think it's weird, but
How many? I think it's weird. How many times have you been?
7.
7
times.
How many times do you have to go before you start doing it yourself?
20.
20?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go for 20?
I'm going to go for 20, but I don't know if I'll ever do it myself.
Oh, really? Yeah.
By myself, no. I don't know if I'll ever do that.
Oh, military
Packing
0.
your own chute and everything? That's
just not my thing. I don't want to stress about that. I'll pull the plug with somebody on my back, but
yeah, I need to have somebody.
I would die if I pack my own chute.
All right, Liz. Accidentally laugh loudly at a funeral or fart while giving a speech at a wedding?
Which would I rather do?
Yeah.
I'd rather fart at a wedding.
Yeah, you don't want to laugh at somebody's funeral?
No.
Everybody's having a good time at a wedding anyway, right?
Right. Hopefully they won't hear it that badly.
If they do, she nudges me that it was my fault.
What would be the worst movie sequel ever made?
Pitch Black.
Pitch Black.
I couldn't see the first one. Why would I want to see the second one? Pitch Black with, what's his name?
Oh,
Vin
Vin
Diesel?
Diesel.
Yeah.
I remember that movie.
Horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Horrible.
It was a bad movie.
I think all the Marvels.
You can't answer my
Sorry.
question.
You don't like Marvel movies?
Yeah, you just
I
lost
tried.
half of your crowd at 1908.
Sorry. It's not my
How
good.
many Marvel movies have you watched?
So I was supposed to watch all of them before I went back to Alaska. And I got through 6 of them. I was doing them
No,
chronologically.
her body got through 6. She slept.
So I was trying to watch them chronologically based upon what a friend sent me. Boy, it was rough.
Was it just boring? Or
Just unrealistic. Like that guy with the hammer and like
that's Thor, man.
floating
What do you
in
mean that guy with a
space.
hammer?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you that one.
I'm not afraid.
I know you're not. Would you rather be able to record your thoughts or your dreams while you sleep?
Dreams.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes my thoughts are extremely inappropriate.
All right, Jayme, last question. What is your most unusual talent?
Oh, I know what it is.
Go for it.
Yeah, okay, so you could have a bobby pin and I could put it somewhere.
Oh.
And I can ask him, hey, where'd I put, he'll see it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. 3 days later, I'm like, I lost my bobby pin. He's like, oh, it's on the right corner dresser underneath the lamp. And I'm like, what?
That's weird.
It is unusual. It's a talent.
Is it just with bobby pins or anything?
No, anything. Like keys. I can't find my keys. I can't find
Do you have a photographic memory?
It's something like that.
It's something of that nature. Like I've always been raised to pay attention to my surroundings. But it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's photographic.
But it definitely helps me out.
It's weird. But no, there'll be times, but I guess when I'm like, not necessarily in room, but I notice little bitty things and for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, that's there. But I move on. But then when she asked me within a day or two, I'm like, oh, I saw it there. Yeah. And then I go back there and it's there.
And I lose everything. So it's great.
Oh, man. The older I get, the more shit I can't find. It's crazy how it's working.
Like the fact that Liz hasn't mentioned that you have a tape measure on your desk and wonder why you have a tape measure because she's got one in her purse.
I have 3 in my
and one
purse.
in her car. Oh.
You're talking about the tape measure on my desk?
Yeah.
So you saw
normally she would have said, "Why do you have a tape measure?" I don't know why she's
I know
asked.
why. Everyone has to measure things.
So what's funny?
When you're looking for your yellow tape measure later, let me know.
So funny thing. I've kind of got this problem with Amazon because they deliver, and so when
she has that same problem.
So I have this close by because I'm like, let's see. Yep, that'll fit.
See, I am not the only one.
That made me laugh because she does the same thing.
So
hold on, let me see.
Yeah, My girlfriend says every time you break out that tape measure, you're going to spend a couple $100. It's like,
it is what it is.
Your chef.
Amazing.
How do you find and keep somebody like that?
I'm going to speak to this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we were going to, myself and my wife were already planning to go on vacation in the late December of 2018, early 2019. I think that was the dates, and that's why I don't want to say the dates. So what happened, we had the two chefs that we originally opened with, phenomenal chefs, still friends today, but they gave us their notice. They gave us their notice in December, and it was like a 1 month notice, and this was early December. I mean, this was like December 11th, okay? Now I'm freaking out because we've got Christmas, we've got New Year's. We had no idea what we're going to do. We're freaking out. I'm like, if we got to close, we got to close. I mean, sure. I'm not canceling the family trip. We'll close, we'll come back, we'll reconvene, we'll figure it out, we'll pay the people while we're gone. And we relied on those two chefs to find another chef or an adequate chef. We put postings out on Zip, we put postings everywhere. And Chef Efren came in the door, and I happened to be there. I happened to be the one doing the interview that day. And I was like, you're here for the interview? He's like, yeah, I'm here for the interview. Just super, super happy. Great individual. Well, we had other people applying. We had people applying from Austin, San Antonio, whatnot. I mean, chefs. They walked in with the jacket. Yeah. They looked the part. They talked the part. They were confident. They, in some cases, arrogant. I asked him, okay, so how'd you find us? What came about? And he's like, oh, well, I'm a chef out of San Francisco, my wife's favorite city to eat and to visit. And I'm like, oh, really? What brought you here? And he said, well, really, I just had to get my family out of that lifestyle and the craziness behind it and how expensive it is. My wife's family's from here. We wanted to move into the area. And now this is taking place on December 18th, this conversation that I'm having with him. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, so what's your experience? And he said, oh, I was a head chef at Skoma's. How many plates did you serve a day? He's like, 12 to 14. And I'm like, oh man,
1,000.
It was not, no, it was 100. 12 to 1,400 a day. I thought he was talking about 12 to 14 plates. and I'm like, a day? And he's like, yeah, we're not going to be able to afford you. And he's like, well, what can you afford? So we talk about salary. We talk about the idea of the concept of, what it looks like. And we talked about how he'd already been offered a job in San Antonio, so on and so forth. Guy is just a great guy to get along with. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, we'll work with stage is what we call it, with Chef Gwen and Chef Justin for, a day. And let me hear from them. They'll interview you, whatever. They call me. They tell me, great. We've got a couple of those chefs, still interviewing. And Chef Efren's like, well, are you going to hire me? And I said, I don't know yet. We're going to go on our vacation. Chef Gwen and Chef Justin have now said that they're going to stay until we get back from vacation, and they're going to give us a couple weeks after that. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, wow, amazing. And we're going to decide when we get back. He's like, okay. So I'm at the airport with my wife. We're having a glass of wine at probably 8:30 in the morning, and Efren calls me. Chef Efren calls me. I'm like, oh, hey, this chef. Or, we hadn't offered him the job.
Mind you that we were not going to make a decision.
Right.
Oh, no, yeah. So before he calls, he calls. And she goes, well, what are you going to say? And I said, well, I'm going to tell him just what I've already told him, that we're going to call him back.
When we get back from vacation.
Yeah.
Right.
So we made that decision, and that was what was going to happen. And I go out and I answer the phone. Hey, chef. Hey, just want to let you know, we're going to make our decision when we get back. We've got 2 other chefs I've already interviewed. We're going to talk about it on vacation. We want Chef Gwen and Chef Justin to have a huge play. And he goes, I don't understand. And I said, well, we've got 2 other people interviewing for the position that we've got to consider. And he's like, I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think, and once you meet him, you'll understand. I mean, he's smiling. Yeah, I can feel him smiling through the phone. He's just a super nice guy. He's like, and the way he says it is so just whatever. And he's like, hey, look, what can you offer me? And I'm like, well, I don't know yet because, you have so much experience. He's like, Jayme, let's just talk. What can you offer me? I know that I'm supposed to be here. It's close to my house. My family is happy. We're going to be here, and I will never leave you. So what can you offer me now? Wow. And then we'll figure it out. And I'm like, I can only offer you this right now. He goes, hey, I'll take it. And I'm like, well, I didn't offer you the job. And he's like, yes, you did. And I said, hold on. Now he's negotiating like he's like selling me, right? And I'm like, well, no.
I'll start tomorrow.
I said, and he goes, Jayme, you need to enjoy your vacation with your wife. I'll take the job. I'll handle it. Everything will be perfect when you return. And then we'll talk about, benefits. We'll talk about stuff. I know that I'm supposed to be here. It's right. Now, me and him had talked about God, and we had talked about other things in the interview that normally doesn't come up. But I'm telling you, we found out on December 9th or 10th, Chef moved to the Cibolo area on the 11th of December, 2 days after we were given notice. And I interviewed him on the 18th. Or he accepted the job on the 27th, because we were actually at the airport on the 27th. So the only way is that God intervened, because the two previous chefs were extremely stressed out. They weren't enjoying what they were doing.
Sure.
We were stressed out. I mean, the whole thing was just a ball of mess. And God said, "Look, I'm gonna help you out a little bit. And he may have been just helping out Chef Efren and his wife and family. I don't know.
Benefit,
he had a child on the way. I mean, he's got 5 kids now, and yeah, we haven't turned back since. And it's been an amazing journey since then. And 2 months later is COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, he took the job, and 2 months later, COVID happened. So, but he was so integral in us getting through that hurdle. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. I mean, literally, we would have closed kindling had it not been for Chef, had it not been for God. I'm not saying forever,
sure,
but had it not been for God intervening and putting Chef and his family into Cibolo.
Yeah.
Why does he move to Cibolo from San Francisco? Why does he ride his bike to work? That's how close he is to kindling.
Wow.
Yeah, he rides his bike to work with samurai swords coming out the back.
Yep,
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so if you pass a Mexican on a bike with samurai swords, don't call the cops. It's our chef.
And don't hit him. What's the one thing that you wish you would have known before starting rehabbing houses to restaurants in Cibolo?
I guess it's more challenging than I thought it was going to be. I came from a background of opening multi-million-dollar stores. And with
this is going to be a breeze.
That's what I thought. But now this doesn't fall on a corporation; it falls on me.
Does it affect you more because it's like you're talking about your pocketbook, or are you just talking about just the responsibility in general?
Just the responsibility in general. Like I care so much about like employees.
Yeah.
And I'm a Libra. I'm fair. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be fair.
Okay.
And with that being said, like, the work environment needs to be good and fair and ethical and just. That's how I feel.
Sure.
And when it's not like that, I get a little like, oh, but it falls on me.
Well, that's probably the common theme with any business owner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially a small business owner. It's whenever we have wins, we have wins. Whenever we have mistakes and problems, I have mistakes and problems.
Yes.
So I can totally get with that. What about you? Is there anything that you think you can think off the top of your head that you would have been better off knowing before you started?
Initially I thought, it's going to cost us $100,000 to do this remod. That's one thing I wish I had been prepared for, what the actual cost was going to land at. Not necessarily. It must have been
way cheaper.
Yeah.
I thought I heard your hair actually whip when you looked over.
Yeah, I really thought we had gotten ourselves in a different position, and it was a lot more expensive than what we had thought of. That helped us whenever we did kindling and the rooted fork almost. But that's one thing I wish I had known what it was really going to cost to do it. Not that we would have changed, not that we would have not done it.
Been better prepared.
Just that we would have been better prepared, better prepared.
Yeah, it definitely helped with kindling and sort of the rooted fork. Because there was unneeded costs that we put into 1908.
Okay.
That were
like what?
Like brand new refrigeration.
You can get plenty of deals.
Absolutely, everywhere else.
Yeah, we learned how other restaurants go out of business and then sell their stuff.
Yeah, go get their stuff.
Y'all being a commercial, y'all have to have a kitchen hood.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, hood vent. Mm-hmm.
Those things are they have to have their own suppression system too. I believe,
yep,
right?
Fire
They
suppression.
can be up to 60,000 plus.
We were actually remodeling a space that was a restaurant to be an open welding shop, right? Mm. And this guy had drove from like Amarillo to come and take that hood out of the building that we were at. And I was like, no way this dude's coming from Amarillo. And then that's when I got my first little taste of how much that restaurant should cost. That kitchen, I was like, oh my God. So where did you buy new for 1908?
Yeah, majority.
Mostly?
Yeah.
When did you have the epiphany that, oh, we spent too much on this?
When we found the dough retarder
For
1908.
For 1908?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we found that and we're like, okay, that was stupid. In other words, that was stupid that we bought the other stuff and had it planned to show up before we ever found the dough retarder.
Yeah, there's restaurant auctions.
Oh.
Had no clue. But I do now, and I'm good friends with the auctioneers now. Like they're like, "Hey, Liz," I'm like, "Hey, tell me when the next auction is."
Do y'all plan on opening more restaurants?
Nope.
Not gonna happen.
Got your fill, huh?
Nope.
Is it because it's a restaurant, or is it because of?
We achieved our goal. I mean, so we have a breakfast and lunch establishment. We have a nice dinner establishment, and we have a fine place to go on a date night. A wine and ale bar that carries some liquor now as well as food. That was the goal. I mean, we wanted to revitalize. We wanted to change the scope of what Cibolo looks like. We wanted people to understand that you can have a nice restaurant. You can have a nice glass of wine in Cibolo. You do not have to go to Bernie. You don't have to go to Fredericksburg. You don't have to go to these other places. We accomplished that. That was what we set out to accomplish. Does that mean we're not done? That we're done with Cibolo? No. We have multiple other properties that we're going to continue to invest in and or pour love and everything else into. Are we done with the restaurant business? Yes. We're done. We accomplished the goal that we set out to accomplish.
I guess it's like seeing a need and filling it.
Sure.
So was I ever like, oh, I want to open a restaurant?
Yeah, no.
No. There was a need.
What's the biggest mistake you made through this process?
I mean, we made some bad hiring decisions.
A contractor, the Rooted Fork, bad hire decision.
The contractor is the biggest mistake. It is like
the one for the Rooted Fork is probably the largest.
Worst.
Yep.
The one for the Rooted Fork.
The initial one for the Rooted Fork.
And then we hired the same contractor for 1908 for kindling, and he just wasn't there. Like he wasn't involved in it like he was at 1908. They did very shoddy work.
Okay.
To where we actually had to close down for 3 months because there was a fire.
Oh, no.
We have flames, okay? And they did not put a fire retardant wall behind it.
Oh, no.
So it got really hot.
It wasn't a fire. It was a small, it was extremely small smolder that was immediately addressed. And the fire department for Cibolo was fantastic. But again, I'll have to give my hat's off to Chef Gwen and Chef Justin because they handled it amazingly to where there was not ever a fire. He immediately started to tear down the little wall that he thought there was smoke coming out of an outlet. He immediately started to cut back that wall to see it, and they did find it was a nail that had actually was starting to, like if you get a nail real hot next to wood, you start to see a little bit of smoke. That's what he saw. So there was no fire extinguisher needed. That was immediately taken care of. But then it was like, oh, we don't have a fire retardant. You know, we don't have this fire.
Now that you're in the wall looking at it.
Yeah.
Now we had to build a new kitchen.
What's the best advice you ever received as entrepreneurs?
The one thing that stands out to me is location.
Do you have a favorite book?
My bookshelf is probably three or four different levels of books that I've all read, and people go, well, what are they talking about? And I'm like, they're talking about how to make money and how to be successful. And they'll say, well, which one's your favorite? I'm like, I don't know, because I bet I could pick any one of those books off my shelf and read it, and it will mean something completely different to me today than it did 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. Favorite book I'm reading right now is Sacred Rest, and that's my favorite book today. I started reading it 2 days ago because of our GM gave it to me.
Calling them motivational speakers is probably a disservice, but for lack of a better word, motivational speakers, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, these guys, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? So something that I noticed was that they all have the same message. You know what I mean? It's being able to get through to whatever person gets the epiphany at the right place, right time, and the right understanding. You know what I mean? So that makes a lot of sense to me. You know, you can have 20 books and they all say the same thing. They all say something different. They're all going to mean something to you different places in your life. So
I read a completely different book. My favorite book is Shit My Dad Says.
She gives it out as Christmas presents. That's true. It's a true story.
It's the best book ever.
Is it a bunch of like one-liners or what is it?
It is.
It is, but it's like, why did they become one-liners?
Okay.
So it's the son talking about his father and what he did growing up, and then stuff that he did in his life, and then the shit his dad would say about it.
Nice.
So It's great.
Huh?
It's a good comedy read, but it is.
There's a lesson in it.
There's lessons.
Really?
In it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What is y'all's go to for rest and relaxation? What do y'all do to reset?
We leave.
Just
So
go anywhere,
we
huh?
literally just went to Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And it was only because it was a nonstop flight. And we just went there for a couple days.
See what you could see, and
Then came back.
what is the next step with those 3 businesses? Are you going to plan to grow them? Or are you going to look to try to exit? Or are you going to, what are your goals? Are you going to sit on them and just sit back, put your feet up and enjoy it?
There's never putting your feet up.
No, that's not true. That's what all business owners do. They put their feet up and count their money. That's what
No way.
a misconception too is that the business owners in a small business world, a lot of times those business owners make a lot less than you do making a salary out in the real world. I'm telling you, there's the reason that restaurants are the one business that banks have the most trouble getting behind and or financing is it's also the one that goes out of business the fastest. A lot of times people will assume that Liz makes, a lot of money or any business owner for that matter. That's just simply not the fact. That's just not the truth.
I recently left on June 19th on my Harley, and I went and I rode from here in Selma, or I live in New Braunfels. I rode from here and ended up, long story short, I ended up in Oregon, or I ended up in Washington. Met up with some friends. We rode through Montana and into South Dakota, and then I was making my way back. My bike broke down. Anyways, taking pictures. Just putting it out there. It's a win. You know what I mean? It's just like unleash, relax, whatever. And then you got some dear friends of mine, lifelong friends of mine. Must be nice to go ride your Harley whenever you want. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. I just worked the last 20 years, 100-hour weeks for me to be able to ride my Harley today. So it is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're exactly right. But to answer your question, what's next as far as the Old Town Cibolo area? We have other properties that we own in that area, and we're going to continue to see how the area develops in the time that it develops in. We're going to continue to be a part of that process, a part of that dream, and the Old Town Cibolo dream. We have no plan on exiting anytime soon. So we're just going to be a part of that and see where that takes us. Nice. I mean, with HEB coming in, that's gonna change the world.
I'm happy.
With some other businesses that I can't comment on that may be coming in on the other side of 78. And then there's businesses that are coming in that are very public knowledge on the other side of 78 where they're doing some things that hopefully a vote comes through this November for a land swap that Cibolo's wanting to do with another major developer that wants to come in on the other side of 78. So we strategically also put ourselves in the middle of what we knew was going to grow. So 1908 will end up, 1908 or Old Town Cibolo will end up being literally, as a friend of ours, Ivory, said, a bow tie. In other words, there's so much around that, but it's the center of the bow tie that holds it together. And Old Town Cibolo is becoming that because of the development on the other side of 78 and the development on the 1103 side. So that we're nowhere near where we need to be and where we're going to be as far as that goes.
Well, we just started.
Yeah, we were early. Liz and I were early. Well, I mean, Old Main was early. Harmon's and Catalano's
Harmon's forever.
And the Mill.
I'd argue to say it's because of those businesses being early, as you say, that people probably have a little bit of faith in being able to spend some
absolutely
development dollars down there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean? So I mean, if it wasn't for you guys, it's beautiful down there now. I mean.
Thank you.
It's everything that's and not just with y'all's businesses,
Absolutely.
Old Main. I remember whenever that was being first built or retrofitted or remodeled or however you want to say it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell when somebody's out to make a buck. You can tell when somebody's trying to create an environment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that goes a long way, I think. Mm-hmm. And y'all certainly nailed it with y'all's businesses. I've not been to the Rooted Fork yet.
The Rooted Fork has the longest line of all three.
Well, we probably see the smallest location.
Yeah, and we see the most number of guests on a daily basis at the Rooted Fork.
What's the biggest myth in the restaurant business?
That the owner makes money.
We already covered this.
No, that it's like, so the biggest myth I think for myself is like, oh, I just want to go in and cook things and it's going to be really fun and everyone's going to be super happy and I'm going to cook these wonderful dishes and everyone's going to love them. And I love cooking and I love serving people and, playing cashier is fun. No, it's a big myth. Now, yeah, is there a passion in chef? Yes, there is passion. Is it hard? Yes, it's extremely hard. But they have the people that are with us that if it wasn't for our employees, we would have nothing. They are the bread and butter.
Yeah.
But they have a passion for what they do. They like what they do. So it's finding those people and doing, to be able to do that. But the myth is like, I'm just going to go in there and like cook things and it's going to be great.
Rainbows and butterflies.
Yes,
right?
rainbows and butterflies with cooking. Because everyone, and honestly, when you go home and you cook a really great meal and you do it like for friends or family, you feel really good inside, right? Yeah. That's what you think a restaurant's going to be. And it's
not.
That atmosphere, that culture that we're striving for at the Rooted Fork is so different than 1908 and Kindling. It's dramatically different. So it's more. I asked them, describe your food to me. If we're gonna talk about culture and what the Rooted Fork is, who are we? What are we doing? Yeah. What is your food? Your food is the stable point of like what this restaurant is going to be. He says, geez, okay, let me think about this. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm thinking it's a little bit trailer parky, but classy at the same time. And I was like, oh, trailer park classy. He's like, yes. And I'm like, perfect. It's exactly what I want. You know?
Your hangover food.
Yeah, like it's exactly what I want. But it's a cute little house. So it's a little deceiving.
Yeah.
A little deceiving. I mean, we have a plate called the Forky Bowl. So Toy Story 4, I believe, has Forky in it, and he's a fork, and he's made out of trash, and and the little girl makes this fork.
You don't need.
Anyways, but you have to watch Toy Story 4. Watch Toy Story 4. Anyway, so Forky is made out of trash, but he's the cutest little character, right?
And you have a entree named after it.
Yes,
yeah, we do. And then someone. So
extra
okay,
trashy.
So I'll go. I'm gonna go back a notch. In the very, very beginning, before we were even open, we asked the community to donate forks.
That's true.
Because we were going to
be called the Rooted
Fork, and we were going to decorate with forks. So there's forks everywhere in the Rooted Fork, and they're from the community.
Wow!
Like the community came out and donated forks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And then someone donated a Forky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they made it at home.
Like they made it at home. Their kid physically made a Forky at home.
Wow. We put a frame around it.
Yeah, we put a frame around it and everything.
It's by the registry.
It's
That's
great.
terrific.
So, anyways, Rooted Fork, Forky. We have a plate called the Forky Bowl, and it's little tater tots,
eggs,
scrambled eggs, bacon, cheese, and then you can make it extra trashy for an upgrade with jalapenos, sausage.
That is amazing.
Yes, and peppers. Like you can make it extra trashy, and then you can Chevy. One of our cooks' his name is Chevalier, and you can make it Chevy style. On top of that, which is extra trashy. You can make it make it a little Chevy.
I'm hungry.
And,
yeah, no doubt.
Right? And it's sausage gravy on top of that.
Oh wow.
Oh, I haven't had it that way.
Yeah, so it's all of this: eggs, tater tots, every meat group that you can do for breakfast, and then sausage gravy. But then, we get fancy. We have salmon toast too.
And bennies, egg bennies.
Egg bennies. Like, so we have like salmon toast. That's
fun. That's all fun,
Yeah. And this week is Shark Week, just FYI. So we have a shark attack burger. So like we make up stuff, and the burger is like messy. It is like, I don't know. You just got to see it. So yeah, trailer park trashy, a little bit classy.
Do you have any social media platforms that y'all are on that you want to let people know where they can find you?
Sure. I mean, we're on Facebook, Instagram.
All three.
What's the third? Twitter?
Oh, no. No, I was saying the three businesses.
Yeah, all three businesses have the basic social media, Instagram, Facebook.
Right on.
Twitter probably.
I don't
Our
do-
managers at each location kind of manage the social media.
They're
part.
younger.
Cool.
They know more better.
That's why she's like,
I can tell you the address. I can tell you how to get your
Facebook.
how to get your butt in the seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, it's so. But we do. We post. We try to post every day. We have so Wednesdays at Kindling. We do a blue plate special. 1908 half price Tuesdays, half price wine on Tuesdays. The Rooted Fork. Well, we're new. I mean, we're a year old, and we are just still trying to find ourselves.
Yeah.
So, but we do Rooted Fork. We do coffee with the cops, which is great. Rooted Fork is going to do a lot more community outreach stuff
Okay.
than the other two. But Cassie, my business partner, is very good at that. So I'm like, great.
She owns the mill, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
soup? So coffee with cops, you could do wine with the judge.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty smart, actually.
I'm going to let you handle that.
I'll handle the politics side of it.
side.
Guys, I appreciate y'all coming down here. I know y'all got to get going. I really appreciate y'all taking time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
it.